We're going to dive into one of the most incredible and honestly kind of weird stories in all of history, how our best friend, the dog, even came to be. It's a story that's got everything: fierce competition, old bones, and what is, without a doubt, the longest and most successful glow-up of all time.
So, I want you to take a good look at these three. You've got what is basically a sentient cloud, a pug whose face looks like it ran into a door and just stayed that way, and a poodle with a haircut that definitely costs more than mine. What in the world could they possibly have in common?
Yep, that's the one. Every single dog, from that tiny chihuahua that lives in a purse to a giant, drooly Great Dane, they all come from the gray wolf. The really wild part, though, is how we got from that apex predator to the little guy who's scared of the vacuum cleaner. And it all started with a rivalry.
Okay, let's set the scene. You gotta rewind the clock like 100,000 years. As our human ancestors were spreading out across Eurasia, they quickly realized they weren't alone at the top of the food chain. Oh no, they had some serious competition from a four-legged, howling, pack-hunting machine.
And when you look at how we stacked up, it's kind of crazy how similar we were. We were both apex predators. We both lived in these complex family groups. And we even used the exact same hunting strategy, this thing called cooperative persistence, which is really just a fancy way of saying we'd chase big animals until they just got too tired to run anymore. We were basically two sides of the same meat-loving coin.
And you have to remember, these wolves were packing some serious hardware. We're talking a bite force of over 300 pounds. That's not just a playful little nip, okay? That is a bone-crushing, I'm not going to ask you twice for that piece of bison kind of bite. These were not animals you messed with.
So, if we were such bitter enemies, how did we end up as best friends? Well, it looks like some clever wolves decided on a major career change. You know, they discovered the absolute joy of human leftovers. You could say it was the invention of takeout. I mean, just think about it. From the wolf's point of view for a second, you could spend your entire day completely exhausting yourself hunting a giant mammoth that might just, step on you. Or you could just kind of hang out near those weird two-legged creatures and wait for them to throw away all the parts they don't want to eat. For some wolves, it was a no-brainer. And this right here is the key to the whole thing. It's called self-domestication. We didn't go out and snatch wolf pups from their dens. Nope. It was actually the less aggressive wolves, the ones who were bold enough to scavenge near our camps, that got the easy meals. This gave them a huge survival advantage. And guess what? They passed those tamer genes down to their own puppies. So generation after generation, they just got a little less wolfy. And after a while, humans started to notice that these tamer wolves hanging around were actually pretty useful. They weren't just taking out the trash anymore. They were ready to clock in for work. Humanity was about to hire its very first, and you could say its best, employee.
And believe me, the job openings were everywhere. Because wolves and humans had such similar social setups, it was surprisingly easy to integrate them into our lives. They could help us track prey, they could act as a furry little alarm system if strangers approached, and eventually, they just became part of the family. The proto-dog had officially joined the team.
This timeline really puts the sheer scale of this partnership into perspective. It all starts 100,000 years ago with us as rivals, but it's not until around 33,000 years ago that we start seeing the first proto-dogs show up in the fossil record. Then you fast forward to ancient times, we start breeding them for specific jobs, and that leads all the way up to the Victorian era, which is when the whole idea of different breeds really exploded.
Which, of course, brings us to the great canine glow-up. As soon as dogs were firmly on our team, we started, well, tinkering. We began to selectively breed them for very specific jobs, and that's what led to the incredible, sometimes bizarre variety of dogs we see all around us today.
In the beginning, it was all about function. Every single breed was basically a custom-built tool. You need a dog to herd sheep? Okay, let's breed a short, stocky one like a corgi that can nip at their heels. You need to hunt a badger down in its burrow? You get a dachshund, which is essentially a furry torpedo. Every weird body shape you can think of had a purpose.
And then the Victorians showed up. And suddenly it wasn't just about what a dog could do anymore, it was all about how it looked. You get the rise of kennel clubs and dog shows, and breeding becomes this weird art form that's all about appearance. This is really when we started getting creative, for better or for worse.
A huge piece of this puzzle is a scientific phenomenon called neoteny. Now that's just a fancy word for saying that we humans started selecting for puppy-like features. You know, the big eyes, the floppy ears, the shorter noses. Why? Because our brains are literally hardwired to see baby-like features and go, "Ah, that's adorable," and not a threat. We basically bred dogs to have permanent puppy dog eyes.
But this whole partnership, it goes so much deeper than just useful jobs or cute faces. After thousands and thousands of years of evolving together, our bond with dogs has literally become biological. It's not just in our hearts, it's actually in our hormones.
So let's talk for a second about a chemical called oxytocin. You've probably heard of it. People call it the love hormone or the cuddle chemical. It's the stuff that's released when a mother bonds with her baby or when you feel that deep, trusting connection with someone. It makes us feel love and trust and protectiveness.
Okay, now here is the absolute kicker. When you pet your dog or when you just stare into their eyes, both of your brains get flooded with oxytocin. It is a mutual chemical feedback loop of pure affection. That feeling of love you get for your dog, it's not just in your head. Science can prove it's in your dog's head too.
So when you really look at this entire 30,000-year journey, from a fierce predator that was fighting you for the same piece of meat to the loyal friend sitting at your feet, it just makes you wonder.
It's just incredible to think that our greatest competitor in the wild somehow evolved to become our most loyal and fiercest friend. It's a relationship that goes back further than farming, further than civilization itself. And it's a pretty powerful reminder that, with enough time and maybe a few leftovers, even the biggest rivalries can turn into the strongest friendships.